You didn't find this video, it found you. And it's not just any video, it's about the Kybalion, one of the most mysterious and powerful books ever written. A secret manual that reveals the laws that govern reality. But barely anyone understands it, because it only shows up when you're ready. As strange as that might sound to your logical mind, there are moments in life when certain information only appears when the soul is mature enough to receive it. And if you're hearing this now, it's because that moment has arrived. What's going to be revealed here isn't taught in schools. You won't find it in regular books. This knowledge is ancient, subtle, vibrational. It was passed down in silence over millennia, from initiate to initiate, among those who dared to look beyond the surface of reality. In Hermetic wisdom, nothing is random, and the Kybalion itself says, chance is but a name for law, not recognized. So don't think it's by chance that you're here. Something inside you asked for answers, for clarity, for a way out, and the universe answered. Through this video, these words, this vibration. According to the Kybalion, everything begins in the mind. Everything that exists before it appears in the world existed as thought, as intention. The very fact that you're here right now hearing this is the materialization of something that began within you, an invisible calling. The ancients knew this. That's why they hid this wisdom in myths, symbols, metaphors. The truth was, never shouted, it whispers, because it can only be heard by those who are truly ready. At some distant point in our history, long before the religions we know today existed, there was a man, or maybe a consciousness, who seemed to carry within him the secret code of the universe. He was called Hermes Trismegistus. Trismegistus means thrice great, great in wisdom, great in power, and great in love for the divine. But Hermes wasn't just a person, he was a living fusion of two ancient archetypes. Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom and sacred writing, and Hermes, the messenger of the gods in Greek mythology. Together, they represented the bridge between the visible and the invisible. Picture this. While most of humanity was caught up in daily survival, there existed a lineage of seekers who gathered in quiet temples far from the eyes of the common people. There, on walls covered in hieroglyphs and mysterious symbols, something was taught that went far beyond religion or philosophy. They taught how reality works. Hermes was considered the founder of the first mystery school of Egypt. Not an ordinary school, but a place where disciples didn't learn through reading or memorization. They learned through direct experience of the truth. Every symbol, every ritual, every teaching was a vibrational key. They studied the cycles of time, the power of words, numbers as expressions of spirit, sacred sounds, the geometry of the soul. And above all, they learned to look within, because the greatest temple was always the inner one. Hermes' knowledge wasn't handed to just anyone. It was sealed, protected, hidden for a reason. Not everyone was ready to receive it without distorting or destroying it. That's where the word we still use today comes from, hermetic. When we say something is hermetic, we mean it's locked, protected, sealed. That's exactly how the ancient secret teachings were, not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. Think of it like this. Would you hand a sharp knife to a child who doesn't know what it is? Or reveal a powerful chemical formula to someone who doesn't understand its consequences? It's the same with deep spiritual knowledge. When someone isn't ready internally, they might use it destructively to manipulate, control, feed the ego, or escape real life. That's why Hermes and his disciples hid the truth within symbolism. Only those who were ready could decode it. It's said that Hermes wrote 35 sacred works covering everything: vibrational medicine, soul psychology, initiatory astrology, universal laws, the secret language of numbers and symbols, the subtle anatomy of the human body. Many of these Works were lost over time, burned in the fires of the Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest spiritual crimes in human history. But not everything was destroyed. Part of this knowledge survived. Centuries later, in the early 20th century, in 1908, a small book with massive power emerged, the Kybalion. Written by anonymous authors who called themselves the Three Initiates, this book wasn't created from scratch. It's a vibrational synthesis of the laws passed down orally for millennia within the Hermetic lineage. Many believe these three initiates didn't just study Hermes, they lived Hermeticism in its essence, and translated for the modern world what was once only revealed in the silence of temples. The Kybalion isn't a book to be read quickly. It's like a mirror. If your mind is closed, you'll only see pretty phrases. But if you read with an awakened heart, each sentence feels like it opens a portal inside you. It doesn't aim to impress you with theories. It wants to transform how you perceive reality. A practical example. When the Kybalion says, "The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding," it means that true teaching only reveals itself when the disciple is ready on the inside. It's like a musical instrument. You could be holding a rare violin, but if your ear isn't trained, you won't hear the beauty of its sound. Wisdom is the same way. It can be right in front of you, but it only reveals itself if you're in tune with it. And maybe that's why you're here now, listening to or reading these words, because somehow something inside you asked for deeper answers. And when the soul asks, the universe responds. That's what the Hermetic tradition is, a silent response to your soul's call. The Kybalion is more than a book. It's an invitation to a new way of seeing the world. And Hermes Trismegistus, with his ancient wisdom, lives on in every person who chooses to dive into this truth and remember who they really are. And all of this only makes sense when you understand one of the greatest secrets ever revealed by the ancient masters. The universe isn't made of matter, it's made of mind. Not mind in the everyday sense of thoughts running wild in your head, but in the deeper sense, everything that exists is a mental manifestation, a conscious thought within an infinite consciousness that permeates everything. This is the first and most fundamental Hermetic principle, known as the principle of mentalism. It says, the all is mind, the universe is mental. And what does that mean in practice? Imagine this. You're inside a big dream, but not just any dream. It's a living, intelligent, coherent dream with laws, cycles, rhythms, and patterns. Everything you see, hear, touch, or feel is part of that dream. But unlike your nighttime dreams, this one is shared collectively, projected by a mind so vast, so elevated, that everything that exists is contained within it. That mind is what Hermeticists call the all. The Hindus call it Maharatma, the cosmic mind. The Gnostics called it the pleroma, the fullness of the source. Some call it God, others the field. The name changes, but the mystery is the same. We live, move, and exist within a living mind. Now think about this. When you're dreaming at night, and in the dream you're running, flying, talking to someone, it all feels very real. But when you wake up, you realize it was all created by your own mind. The setting, the people, the situations, all came from within. Now take that to a deeper level. What if what you call reality is the exact same thing, just on another level of dreaming? The dream of the universal mind. That's what Hermeticism proposes. And it's not just symbolic. Today, even quantum physics is starting to echo this view, showing that the subatomic world behaves in unstable, fluid, and changeable ways until it's observed. In other words, consciousness directly influences matter. And what does that have to do with you? Everything, because if the universe is mental, then everything you think, believe, and feel creates a real impact on this reality. Thoughts aren't just invisible things that show up and disappear. They're vibrations that shape your life experience. For example, imagine you grew up hearing that money is hard, life is suffering, no one is trustworthy. That became your mental background. And now, every time an opportunity to grow or open up to something new comes along, something inside you pulls you back. Why? Because your mind is running an invisible script that says it's not safe to move forward. And since the universe responds to what you vibrate internally, you start attracting situations that confirm those patterns. The same goes for love. If deep down there's a belief that nobody stays, love is dangerous, I'm not enough, then no matter how much you want a deep relationship, your mental vibration sabotages that desire. And life keeps handing you more of the same: abandonment, rejection, frustration. But here's the liberating part. If everything is mind, then you can change your reality by changing your mind. And that doesn't mean thinking positive in a shallow way. It means consciously reprogramming your mental field, changing the ideas you feed, the emotions you sustain, and the way you see yourself in the world. Think about it with me. If you change the tuning on a radio, it starts picking up a different frequency. The music changes, the mood changes, the energy changes. It's the same with the mind. When you shift the frequency of your thoughts, you start attracting different experiences, different people, different paths, because the outer reality is a direct reflection of the inner state, and this isn't too mystical or out of reach. Take a simple example. On a day when you wake up feeling inspired, with faith, at peace, everything seems to flow. People treat you better, traffic feels lighter, even your coffee tastes better. Now think about the day when you wake up irritated, moody, complaining. Everything starts going wrong. That's not coincidence. That's resonance. You're not a victim of the universe. You're a conscious co-creator within a greater mind. And the more you align with that consciousness, the more you purify your mind, elevate your thoughts, take care of what you feel and believe, the more reality starts to reflect that state. Everything is mind. But here's a crucial point. The human mind is used to repeating fears, repeating stories, repeating judgments. If you're not aware, it traps you. That's why the masters didn't just say, create with the mind. They also said, wake up to the truth of who you are, because deep down, you are not your mind. You are the consciousness that observes the mind, and true creation begins when you rise above repetitive thoughts and choose, with clarity, what you want to think, what you want to feel, what you want to project. You don't need to understand everything all at once. But if this idea has found you, it's because something inside you is already ready to begin. And what if everything you experience is being guided by laws as real as gravity, even if you can't see them? What if absolutely nothing is by chance, not even the fact that you're reading this right now? From the moment you understand that the universe is mental, the next revelation comes. This mind that holds everything together operates through universal laws, invisible yet incredibly precise laws. Nothing escapes them, nothing happens outside of them. The Kybalion states clearly, everything happens according to law. Chance is just a name for a law not recognized. This completely changes how you see reality. Life stops being a random series of disconnected events and becomes understood as a coordinated dance, where every step, every movement, every consequence has a source. Everything is connected, and if you pay close attention, you'll see that everything that happens in your life is the result of some vibration you yourself set in motion, even if it was unconscious. Let's take a practical example. Imagine someone who's constantly complaining about life, talking badly about others, doubting themselves, feeding fear all the time. That mental pattern is continuously vibrating in their field, like a radio frequency. What will they attract? Situations that match that frequency. Negative people, missed opportunities, recurring illnesses, low energy. This isn't punishment. It's not divine wrath. It's simply the law of cause and effect in action. This is one of the 7 Hermetic laws, and maybe the easiest one to notice in daily life. You reap what you sow. Every thought is a seed. Every action is a vibration sent out. And the universe, like a great intelligent mind, responds by sending back more of the same energy you emitted. It doesn't matter if you did it consciously or not. The law still operates. Just like gravity doesn't stop acting because someone doesn't believe in it, these spiritual laws don't stop working just because most people ignore their existence. They're always at play. And the result is that your current life, with all its joys, pains, cycles and challenges, is the exact reflection of what you've generated in the past. Sometimes in another time, sometimes on another plane, but always with a cause. And this isn't just Hermeticism, this is physics, this is deep spirituality, this is karma understood vibrationally, physical actions, subtle thoughts, repressed emotions. All of it emits a frequency, and that frequency doesn't disappear into thin air. It comes back. Because the universe is an intelligent field that records everything. It's like the universe is a giant mirror, but not a regular mirror. A living, vibrational mirror that doesn't just reflect your image. It reflects your inner essence. It sends back what you truly feel, think, believe, not what you say out loud or pretend to believe. That's why so many people get frustrated, trying to positive think their way through life, thinking that just repeating nice phrases will do the trick. If inside you're still vibrating scarcity, fear, anger, or guilt, that's what the universe will keep mirroring back to you. The Hermetic laws exist to set us free, not to trap us. When you realize you're creating your reality with every choice you make, you stop feeling like a victim of the world and start becoming the author of your own story. But that takes courage, because taking responsibility for everything around you also means looking within and recognizing your own hidden causes, the ones you yourself set in motion unknowingly, but that are now returning as effects. And if you feel like you're stuck in repeating cycles, patterns that show up over and over in relationships, money, health, it's because the causes are still being fed internally. Changing the outside won't help. Moving to a new city, getting a new partner, switching jobs won't solve anything if your internal frequency doesn't change. Because the universe, following these laws, will keep mirroring what you carry in your energetic field. That's the beauty and also the seriousness of this knowledge. It doesn't give you shortcuts, it doesn't give you excuses, but it gives you the full map. And that map starts with the understanding that nothing, absolutely nothing, is random. So next time something seemingly senseless happens, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What's the cause I haven't recognized yet?" That simple act of questioning is already a leap in consciousness, because you begin to move out of the frequency of desperation and into the vibration of conscious observation. And that's where transformation begins. And maybe now it starts to make sense why you feel so unstable at certain times, why there are phases when everything seems to flow. You feel full of energy, clear, motivated. And then, without warning, you hit a period where everything seems stuck. Doubt creeps in, exhaustion returns, old feelings resurface. A lot of people think this means they're failing, that they're back at square one, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In Hermetic philosophy, this has a name, the Law of Rhythm. This law states that everything in existence moves like a pendulum. Just as it swings from one extreme to the other, life also pulses between opposites. Light and shadow, expansion and retreat, progress and pause, confidence and fear. It's the natural flow of existence, and it's not something you can avoid, it's something you're meant to understand. Look at nature. The sun rises and sets, the seasons change, the heart beats in rhythm, the ocean follows the tides. Life is organized in cycles, and you, as part of the all, are also within that movement. The problem is that we were taught to see life as a straight line, as if real progress meant always going up, always growing, always improving. But that's a modern myth, created by a system that glorifies non-stop productivity and evolution. Without rest, in the universe, nothing grows upward forever without first dipping down a little. Not even the strongest tree can support its branches if its roots aren't deep and firm in the dark earth. The law of rhythm teaches us that temporary setbacks are not failures, they're adjustments, they're balancing movements. Just like the financial market needs corrections to avoid crashes, our soul also needs pauses, revisits, and retreats to sustain a new level of awareness. Plato used to say that the soul evolves in a spiral. What does that mean? That even when it seems like we're going through an old struggle again, we're actually revisiting that point from a different angle. It's like climbing a spiral staircase. You look down and see the same spot as before, but you're at a higher level. Think about an emotional wound you thought you had already healed. Maybe an old fear, an insecurity, a painful memory. Suddenly, all of that comes back, and you wonder, why am I feeling this again? I thought I was over it. The old mind sees this as failure, but awakened consciousness knows the pendulum is swinging back. Not to knock you down, but to shine light on that spot more deeply. It's a chance to face that pain with the eyes of someone who has already grown. This also explains why so many people self-sabotage right before taking a big leap. Sometimes, just when everything seems to be going well, a crisis hits, a doubt surfaces, something unexpected happens. The internal rhythm is shifting, testing if you've learned to stay centered even when the tide changes. Here's a simple example. Imagine someone going through an emotional healing process. They start meditating, practicing gratitude, taking care of themselves. At first, everything flows, but after a while, an old feeling of loneliness comes back. The urge to give up grows. They think it was all for nothing. But the truth is, this is part of the process. The soul's rhythm is asking for more depth. What's been hidden needs to be welcomed, seen, transformed. If you resist this oscillation, you suffer more. It's like rowing against the current. But if you accept the movement, surrender to it with awareness, and observe what it's trying to show you, then even the hardest moments become part of your expansion. True spirituality isn't about feeling good all the time. It's about knowing how to ride the highs and lows with presence without losing your center. It's knowing that you can fall and still keep awakening. Because every descent is really a push for a more conscious rise. It's in the silence of contraction that you create the space for the next expansion. And it's not about romanticizing pain. It's about giving it meaning, about understanding that even suffering has an evolutionary role. It reveals where there's still rigidity, where there's still resistance, where there are still unseen wounds. It shows you the limits of your current consciousness so you can go beyond them. That's the beauty of the law of rhythm. It reminds us that life isn't a straight line of progress, but a dance. And in that dance, even the steps back are part of the choreography. By now, maybe you've realized something fundamental. Everything around you, and even what happens inside you, follows an invisible but constant flow. And now we arrive at two of the most transformative principles of Hermeticism: polarity and vibration. Understanding these two principles isn't just about learning spiritual theory. It's about learning how to change your life from within. Let's start with polarity. In the universe, everything has two poles. This is a law, cold and hot, light and shadow, love and fear, joy and sadness. They seem like opposites, but they're part of the same vibrational scale. What changes is the degree, the intensity. Cold and hot, for example, are different manifestations of the same thing. Temperature. Where does cold end and heat begin? There's no exact line. It's a subtle transition. The same goes for emotions, thoughts, and states of consciousness. Fear and love are two extremes of the same emotional energy. Many times, the anger we feel is actually rooted in deep fear. Sadness sometimes is love that wasn't understood. And here's the secret of inner transmutation. You don't need to destroy one state to reach the other. You just need to shift your position within the same scale. That's emotional alchemy. It's what the ancient masters practiced internally, far from the public eye. They knew you can't erase an emotion or eliminate a thought by force, but you can transform it, raise its frequency, move what's dense into a more subtle state. Now let's talk about vibration. Everything in the universe vibrates, from the atoms in your body to the planets in orbit. Everything is in motion, nothing is truly still, and the difference between what's visible and invisible, between matter and spirit, lies in the speed of that vibration. Think of it like this. A rock vibrates slowly, it's dense, heavy. A sound vibrates faster, light vibrates even faster, and thought even faster than that. Consciousness? Faster than all of them. And the higher the vibration, the more subtle and powerful the reality it manifests. So what does this mean in practice? It means you are literally the result of the frequency you're vibrating at right now. If your vibration is low, filled with negative thoughts, feelings of guilt, fear, anger, your outer reality will reflect that. Everything will feel harder, heavier, paths close, relationships become toxic, opportunities seem to vanish. But if you raise your vibration with presence, gratitude, love, clarity, inner truth, the world around you starts to respond differently. It's like switching the station on a radio. The frequency changes, and with it, so does the content you receive. To transmute, then, isn't about changing who you are, but shifting the vibrational state you're operating in. It's like turning up the temperature of the heart. It's moving away from fear and toward love. It's moving away from doubt and toward trust. And here's the key. That shift doesn't happen through external effort, but through awareness. Through small daily choices, an inner silence you choose to maintain, a negative thought you decide to observe instead of feed, a forgiveness you offer, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. True alchemy, in the end, isn't in old laboratories with flasks and formulas. It's in your body, your mind, and your heart. It's you, through your own presence, transmuting shadow into light, fear into courage, anger into compassion. And it all starts with one small step, recognizing that you're not stuck in polarity. You are the point of consciousness that can move between the extremes. You are the alchemist. If you understand that everything vibrates, everything shifts, everything can be transmuted, then maybe now you can see that even the concept of purpose isn't fixed. Because if the universe is constantly moving, if your consciousness is always evolving, then your path also needs to change. But a lot of people are still stuck in the idea that there's just one life purpose, like it's some unchanging mission you need to figure out as soon as possible, or else you failed. That idea is one of the biggest spiritual blocks of our time, because it paralyzes you. It makes you feel like if you haven't found the big purpose yet, then you're behind, you're wrong, you're lost. But that's not true. The real purpose of life is movement. It's flow. It's the learning that happens with every step. Imagine this. Your journey is like walking a road filled with little glowing orbs scattered along the way. Each orb represents a desire, a dream, a goal that moved you at some point in your life. As a child, maybe it was the dream of being an astronaut or a ballerina or an artist. In your youth, maybe it was passing the college entrance exam, gaining independence, finding true love. And you chased those things. You gave your all. You changed habits. You faced fears until you reached them. And once you did, you realized it wasn't the end. It was just another orb. Then a new one appeared, a new calling, a new desire that pulled you toward another stretch of the path. And it's been like that for all of us. Every goal you've ever had was like a spark that got you moving. And it's that movement that drives evolution. What we call purpose is really the collection of those movements, those phases, those transformations we go through while chasing something greater, even if we don't know what that greater is. The problem is when you think you have to get it right on the first try, when you believe there's only one right path, when you start judging your past goals as a waste of time. But no true desire is useless. No sincere pursuit is in vain. Even if it doesn't take you where you imagined, it'll take you where you needed to be. Spiritual growth isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. You revisit themes, patterns, even old dreams, but always at a different level of awareness. And that's beautiful, because it shows you're moving, you're not stuck, you're discovering yourself. Hermes Trismegistus, the father of Hermeticism, said, "The path reveals the seeker." That means you don't need to know who you are to start. You find out who you are as you walk, and as you walk you change. And when you change, your dreams change, your orbs change, and that's okay. There's no contradiction in that. There's growth. How many times have you wanted something with all your heart and then later realized it didn't make sense anymore? That's not inconsistency. That's a sign your soul is updating its internal codes. What you want today is an extension of who you are today, and who you are today is way more than who you were yesterday. So don't be afraid to leave an orb behind. Don't feel guilty for changing your route. Don't think you wasted time. Everything you've lived up to now was preparation. It was like a trail that only reveals itself as you walk. Each step lights up the next one. And if you stop out of fear of making a mistake, the trail disappears, because it only shows itself to those who dare to keep going. If right now you feel like you're without direction, without purpose, unsure of what you want, maybe that's just the space between two orbs. A sacred moment of silence where your next desire is still forming inside you. Honor that silence. It's necessary, it's fertile. That's where the new starts to vibrate. Your mission isn't to find the perfect orb. It's to keep seeking with awareness, with truth, with presence. And the more you align with who you really are, not who the world expects you to be, the more the right orbs will appear. The more the path will open, and the clearer your reason for being here will become. Don't wait for a final revelation like a sign that says, "This is your purpose." The universe doesn't work like that. It whispers, it nudges, it invites. And every time you say yes to a true calling, even if you don't know where it's leading, the universe responds with more light. The search itself is the awakening. And when you start to recognize this intelligent flow that guides every small transformation in your life, you realize something even deeper. None of these laws work in isolation. Even though we study them one by one, they aren't separate. They're not scattered like puzzle pieces waiting to be assembled. They already come connected, intertwined, integrated. They're like 7 threads braided together to form a single fabric, the source code of the universe itself. In practice, this means that everything happening in your life is being moved simultaneously by all these laws at the same time, even if you don't notice it. Even if you've never heard of Hermeticism, the movement of your mind, the unfolding of your experiences, the emotions you feel, the challenges that arise, the opportunities that appear, all of it is being woven, by this invisible intelligence that operates through these seven forces. Think of a musical instrument, like a guitar. The strings are different. They have unique thicknesses and sounds, but it's the whole set that creates the music. A single isolated note doesn't say much, but when all the strings are tuned and played consciously, a melody emerges. That's how the Hermetic laws work. Each one reveals an aspect of reality, but it's in the union of them all that truth is revealed. The law of mentalism is the structure. It's the understanding that everything begins in the mind. Everything, the entire universe is a living thought. Your reality is shaped by the quality of the thoughts you nurture. You're like a programmer working with an invisible language. Your thoughts are code, and the world responds to that code without questioning whether you're aware of it or not. The law of correspondence is the bridge. It shows that everything above has a reflection below, and everything outside reflects what's inside. That's why your external world is a mirror. If you're constantly in conflict with others, it's because you're carrying an internal field of division. If you attract people who don't value you, maybe you're not valuing yourself. The world outside is always showing you how things are inside. This is the bridge no one ever taught us to cross. The law of vibration is the movement. Nothing is still, not even what looks solid or permanent. Everything vibrates, everything pulses, every thought, every emotion, every word you speak generates a frequency, and that frequency attracts matching realities. When you understand this, you begin to watch what you feel, what you think, what you consume, because all of that is influencing what you manifest, even if it's unconscious. The law of polarity is the variation. It shows that everything is dual, light and shadow, love and fear, joy and sadness. They're not separate things, they're extremes of the same energy. The difference is in the degree, not in the nature. Anger, for example, can be transmuted into courage. Fear can be turned into presence. Chaos can be reorganized into wisdom. When you understand this law, you stop fighting the extremes and start moving them with awareness. The law of rhythm is the cycle. It teaches that everything has tides, everything rises and falls, everything breathes. If you're in a tough moment, it will pass, because life's pendulum never stops. But the secret isn't in trying to control the movement. It's in learning how to surf it. If you know when to plant, when to rest, when to be silent, when to act, you stop being a victim of the cycle and start dancing with it. The law of cause and effect is the chain. Nothing happens by chance. Every action causes a reaction. Every choice has a consequence. Everything you're experiencing now was created at some point in the past by a decision, a word, a thought, a vibration that came from you. And this applies to the past, but also to the future. What you plant today, you'll inevitably harvest tomorrow. The choice is yours. The result is inevitable. The law of gender is the principle of creation. It shows that everything in the universe contains the masculine and the feminine. And we're not talking about biological gender, but about energetic qualities. The masculine is action, focus, direction. The feminine is intuition, reception, gestation. Every creative process needs both. An idea must be received, feminine, and then executed, masculine. A project must be felt, feminine, and then manifested, masculine. Without balance between these two aspects, everything feels incomplete. And when you begin to see these laws, not as abstract rules, but as living mechanisms operating within you, you begin to move with them, to navigate, to co-create. You stop being tossed around by life and start riding the waves of the universe with more balance, more awareness, more lightness. Because here's the key: either you learn to use these laws consciously, or you'll be dragged by them unconsciously. There's no in-between. They never stop operating. The difference is whether you're awake or asleep, whether you're creating or being carried. There is no neutral space in the universe. You're always vibrating something, always manifesting something. And if you're not choosing it consciously, something or someone else is choosing it for you. The media, your traumas, the system, your fears, your past. All of that can program your mind if you don't take the reins. But now that you understand all these laws are really one intelligence in motion, you can start using this knowledge as a real map, as a hidden manual of reality, as the source code that governs everything, including you. Now that we've begun to see the universe as a unified field of intelligent laws operating at all times, there comes a point where one inevitable question arises. How do we live in harmony with all of this? What happens to someone who wakes up and starts to recognize the hidden signs behind visible reality? What happens is the birth of the initiate. An initiate isn't someone who's read secret books or memorized mysterious names. It's someone who stopped fighting life and started flowing with it. The true initiate understands something most people ignore. It's not about controlling the universe. It's about aligning with it, and that changes everything. Look, the swimmer who dives into a raging river and tries to swim against the current quickly wears out. He gets drained, frustrated, and no matter how hard he fights, he's swept away by the water. But the swimmer who observes the direction of the current, who understands the rhythm of the water and surrenders to the flow, is able to go much further with way less effort. He surfs. He dances with the movement. The Kybalion says something that few people really absorb. The masters obey the law on higher planes and rule it on lower ones. What does that mean? That true power doesn't lie in challenging the structure of the universe, but in understanding it so deeply that it begins to work in your favor. The master doesn't fight against the tides of existence. He understands the cycles, reads the signs, sees the invisible, and acts with precision. That's wisdom in action. In practice, this shows up in simple choices. When a challenge appears, the initiate doesn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They ask, "What is this trying to show me?" When a tough phase comes, they don't freak out. They go quiet, breathe, and realize this shift is part of the rhythm. I can move through it. They don't react automatically. They respond consciously. And that subtle difference between reacting and responding is a quantum leap on the spiritual path. Because the initiate knows that every event in life carries a hidden code. Every person who crosses their path, every loss, every gain, every silence, it's all language, it's all symbolic, and those who've learned to read those symbols don't live on autopilot anymore. They live in presence, in alignment. And that's where true power is born. Because, contrary to what we were taught, power isn't about controlling everything. It's about being so in tune with the laws of the all that you become one with them. And when that happens, you start to access a flow in life that looks magical to those who are still asleep. People start to notice that you don't get shaken easily, that you change direction with ease, that you don't get lost in drama, that you don't panic over delays, because you understand that life isn't sabotaging you, it's shaping you, and everything, absolutely everything, has a deeper purpose, even when that purpose isn't yet visible. That's what it means to live as an initiate, to stop drowning in internal resistance and start rowing with the rhythm of the universe. But heads up, this doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean accepting everything as it is. On the contrary, it means acting with wisdom, not desperation. It means knowing when to hold back and when to move forward, when to be silent and when to speak. The initiate is like an invisible conductor who feels the symphony of existence and chooses each movement with precision, because they're no longer trying to force reality. They're co-creating with it. And here's the most powerful detail. The more you align with these laws, the more life begins to deliver immediate responses. You know that feeling of synchronicity, of being in the right place at the right time, of saying something and then it happens, of thinking about someone and they show up. That's not coincidence, that's alignment. It's the living language of the all responding to your aligned vibration. And in that state, things aren't perfect, but they're clearer. You stop trying to understand everything with your rational mind and start perceiving with your awakened heart. You feel the movement before it happens. You sense the direction before knowing the reason. Because you're no longer separate from the all, you are the all, in the form of experience. That's the true beginning of mastery, but not a kind of mastery that dominates, a mastery that listens, that feels, that collaborates with reality. The initiate doesn't run from pain. They understand that even pain is a teacher. The initiate doesn't worship success. They know success is also a test. The initiate lives with feet on the ground and a wide-open soul. They're not perfect, but they're conscious, and that changes everything. Because at the end of the day, the universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. But what good is knowing all this if you don't know how to apply it? Knowledge alone doesn't change lives. What transforms reality is when knowledge becomes action. And this is where the Kybalion stops being a mysterious book and becomes a living map, capable of reorganizing your experience of the world. Because the truth is simple, reality changes when you change, and you change when you start acting in alignment with the laws that govern everything. You don't need to memorize complex terms or understand deep philosophy. You just need to observe closely and start living differently. The Kybalion is straight to the point. It doesn't give you a religion or dogmas. It gives you tools. And now you'll see how each of them can be used in everyday life, in practical, simple, and deeply powerful ways. Let's start with mentalism. The first law: everything is mind. So the question is, what are you thinking right now? What have you been feeding inside your head every day? Because your outer world is an exact reflection of what you vibrate internally. And that reflection is born from your inner dialogue. Do you criticize yourself or uplift yourself? Do you see yourself as a victim or a creator? Do you imagine the worst or allow yourself to envision the best? Visualization, affirmation, and thought awareness are spiritual tools, not just self-help techniques. Because everything starts in the invisible mind before it becomes visible in the world. The second law is correspondence. As above, so below. It sounds poetic, but it's actually extremely practical. Want to understand your life? Look at nature. Day turns to night. The tide rises and falls. Winter always prepares the way for spring. In the same way, your soul also goes through cycles. Your daily life also responds to larger rhythms. And you can use this law to bring harmony between inner chaos and the outer cosmos. Watch for patterns. When something keeps going wrong, what keeps repeating? When something flows, what's present? The universe gives you clues all the time. You just need to learn how to read them. The third is the law of vibration. Everything vibrates. Everything emits a frequency. And the question that changes everything is, what frequency are you vibrating at? Are you vibrating guilt, fear, lack, or are you vibrating presence, gratitude, trust? You can't fool this law. It doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you actually feel. And raising your vibration is simple. Take a deep breath. Walk barefoot on the earth. Feel sincere gratitude for the now. Be silent for a few minutes. Listen to music that lifts you. Smile at someone. That already shifts your frequency, and when your frequency changes, your reality realigns. The fourth law is polarity. Everything is dual. Cold and hot belong to the same line, just in different degrees. So do fear and love, chaos and order, doubt and faith. Everything is on a scale. That means if you're at one extreme, you don't need to change your nature. You just need to shift the degree. You can take your anger and turn it into courage. You can transmute sadness into creative introspection. You can move from fear to love, gradually like adjusting a volume knob. Spiritual alchemy isn't about eliminating emotions, but about moving your energy in the right direction. The fifth law is rhythm. Nothing stays the same. Everything rises and falls. There are cycles in everything, days of light and days of shadow. And knowing this brings you peace. Because when the tide is low, you'll remember it's going to rise again. And when everything is blooming, you'll stay humble, knowing autumn always returns. The secret isn't to resist the waves. It's to learn how to surf them. On tough days, pause, breathe, and trust. On good days, be thankful, share, and plant seeds. That's rhythmic wisdom. That's living in the timing of the universe. The sixth law is cause and effect. Nothing happens by chance. Every action creates a reaction. Every thought creates a field. Every intention shapes consequences. So if you want to change your harvest, change the seed. Cultivate more conscious thoughts. Choose words with more presence. Act with more intention. Everything you do, even what no one sees, is building your tomorrow. There's no use complaining about fate if you're living without consciously planting. The effect is just the mirror of the cause. And that mirror never lies. The seventh and final law is gender. Everything contains both the masculine and feminine principle. And we're not talking about biology, we're talking about consciousness. The masculine principle is focus, decision, action. The feminine principle is intuition, receptivity, sensitivity. When those two aspects are out of balance, life gets stuck. You act too much without listening to your heart, or you listen too much without acting. True creation only happens when those two sides dance together, balancing logic and feeling, doing and sensing, deciding and intuiting. That's what activates your power to co-create. And here's the secret that ties it all together. You don't have to get it right all the time. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be in alignment. When you start aligning your life with these laws, even imperfectly, reality starts to reorganize around you, because the universe responds to sincere intention. It responds to presence. It responds to awareness. And that's what makes the Kybalion so powerful. It's not a magic formula. It's a reminder of what you already are. But before you go, something important is waiting for you. A special video was carefully prepared to help you dive even deeper into everything you've started to remember here. It's like a continuation of this awakening, a next step on this journey that has already begun inside you and is now calling for more clarity, more presence, more awareness. So don't close this tab. Don't go back to distraction. Just click the video that's appearing on the screen now, and I'll meet you there. See you on the other side.